Hey, Chief.
Perfect.
Easy.
Yeah, you're right on.
Are you
That's
sure?
all we need. I'll do it tomorrow. That's all I need. Y'all got it cooled down in here this
It was
time.
good, that's why I wore this, I knew it would be cool.
Where's Fred?
I saw him walking this morning and I thought, I wonder if he knows it starts at 5:30.
I'm gonna have to call him. He's gonna have to get a lecture. He's got perfect attendance. It's like Sunday school. How are you? But you look all tan back from the beach.
Yeah, it was beautiful weather, that's for sure.
Goodness.
We got a little sunshine.
Good. Elizabeth had a good time.
She did, she got to ride.
Oh,
Good.
Is your daughter back from where, is she in Slovakia?
She'll get back June, like 26th or something like that, end of June.
Do you go over there to retrieve her? Okay, so the one who's here from Slovakia, whose name is Zoli,
Yep.
his family's coming here in May
Oh,
to
really?
retrieve him.
Oh, okay.
And they're gonna do like a
We'll
week.
just maybe do a tour around, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you don't have to do that, hopefully we'll get some point to go over and visit, but, I mean, not, it'll be later.
What's going on?
Did everybody get to see our mast arm pole?
Yes.
This is the official, you'll notice two stamps at the bottom. So this is the official North Carolina DOT approved, going to shop drawing mast arm pole, the mono pole.
Rated for 110 mile an hour?
That's what it says, 110-mile-an-hour winds. And it
Big
is,
tornado.
Oh, I thought about 110 mile an hour going in 110.
I swore I was.
I went to the traffic light once about this, 108,
Oh.
16 years old, about 3 o'clock in the morning.
I
Got
was,
$20, I wouldn't do it.
oh,
That sounds like me. I didn't like to get there when I was 16 years old. I'll take just about anybody's there.
I've been 17.
it definitely, I was supposed to remember, because I know y'all like the Jeopardy questions. And the Jeopardy question is, what color is the pole? And the answer is not black. To me, it is black, but it is, the answer wasn't black. The answer was some very specific kind of black, but I don't remember what it was. And it mattered.
Looks good.
It looks like a traffic light.
I'm just trying to figure out how those face all four directions.
Oh, they got a real nice one in Gastonia right near the new baseball stadium. I saw it
Is it,
yesterday.
how many directions is it?
It's one pole, all four.
Just like this one?
Yeah, it's super nice.
And it works out okay?
It seems to be.
Well, and see,
There's a bunch of them in,
now look, y'all try to find a seat now. I don't know that you'll be able to find anywhere to
a
sit.
couple of them in Marion,
Uh,
a bunch of them in.
Before you get too comfortable though, I know that y'all are all gonna speak, if I can just get you to sign in for me. And then when it comes time for y'all's presentation, as you do the first
There
time
is
you
a,
go up, each of you individually to speak.
There was a very
Please state your
specific,
name
there's only
for the
one
record, so that
color
myself
of black that you can pick a
Thank
pole
you.
to be, but it's not black. It is a very specific color, and it has a inherent code that goes with it. And I was trying my best to remember the code, but I did not. I tried, I'm sorry. I did my best. Well, I did somebody
Just have
best.
some more information.
And, y'all are right, so when y'all talked about, we had talked about moving the meeting times to 6.
Yeah.
And then we talked about going to 5:30, and I thought, I wonder how I would like it. And I thought I would like it better, but I don't. I like it better at 6:30. I changed my mind. I know y'all were right. I don't like it at 5:30.
Is the
Bill,
recording playing?
it is, listen, it does not bother me to tell people that I was wrong. I always tell my wife it's not my fault that it's a rare occurrence, and then I usually have to duck, because she loves that.
I also have your presentation.
Thank you, I've been carrying this around all day.
The PowerPoint slide.
So, nobody seems to be very impressed with it,
Meeting.
but
That's
a very expensive draw.
Clicker,
I
it's
gotta
got-
have to say it,
you'll be able
I
to-
might be wrong, but it's highly unlikely.
See, there we go.
You know, a lot of construction projects will have like a rendering of what it's gonna be, can we put a rendering of the,
That's right.
of the light,
We will.
that's on pole over there?
And see, they were gonna do a rendering, but I didn't wanna pay for one because they're thousands of dollars. And I thought, Mr. Mayor, I think we are ready to begin.
Are we ready or not?
Yes, we are. And I was looking to make sure Rhonda was here because I know she is acutely interested in our asset inventory and assessment presentation that we've got coming up. She has lost sleep over the state of our sewer system, specifically in Spring Forest, where we treat our sewage, or well, we collect it.
I said there's a lot of sewage up there.
There is a lot of
There
sewage
is.
up there.
My husband produces a lot.
Too much information.
May I ask anything else wise to say before I call the meeting order? Sure, I'll take a thought. I'll call our meeting to order. First item on the agenda is adoption of our agenda. So there's a lot of stuff here under our consent agenda, because we ain't got there yet. So what's your pleasure on the agenda? You gotta have one, right?
Motion to adopt agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, nay, motion carries. Public comments, anybody sign up? All right, moving right along.
Oh, that's not.
Strategic plan adoption,
Oh, Mr. Mayor, we need to adopt the consent agenda.
we do have one,
Yeah, we need to approve it, I'm sorry. It's,
okay, do it. Whole lot of stuff in there, okay, right. Okay, look at it.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay, motion carries. Now we'll go to our strategic plan adoption. Guess that's what all these fellows, this fellows say.
they are here for the AIA presentation, which I think is number 3. Yes, so the strategic plan, we've had this, we've looked at it, got some thoughts on it, talked about it a little bit in our strategic retreat earlier this month, last month, end of February. So happy to make adjustments to the plan as needed. I did not get any individual feedback on the plan other with changes. So, wanted to give you all the time to, if there are changes, we can make those edits, and then if you all are ready to adopt the strategic plan, we can adopt that. Whatever the will of the board may be, Mr. Mayor. I waited until you took a bite of your cookie to say that.
Comments, any? We should be described first before we meet up, they're just quiet, so right now, they don't say nothing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Voting?
I appreciate Gardner Webb's partnership in this, and I appreciate sorry I didn't make the strategic meeting the other day, I had something come up, but I really like the way it's laid out, the different strategies, the goals. And I think it puts us in a stronger position to have a strategic plan.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think it sort of fits in line with the questionnaire we put out, or what do you call it?
Yeah, the community survey, that they did, yes, sir.
so, I mean, if it's sort of in keeping with that as well, so.
Get there with it. Anybody else?
I guess I move that we adopt the strategic plan that's in our booklet tonight.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Motion second, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Only other item I've got for you all tonight, Mr. Mayor, is, and I'm so sorry, when we did strategic plan, to give you guys a page number, so this is a large packet, so I probably got lost in there, I apologize. So on 61, we begin, we have got, a resolution, and it's got the long name there, but it's .04 for disaster assistance funding through the USDA Community Facilities Program. This is something that we've spoken about last month. We're now ready to submit our application, so we're seeking disaster assistance funding for three things: a $400,000 trash truck, a police department side-by-side for $25,000, and a public works sludge truck for our sewer department. It is public works I wondered, I was thinking, I wonder if they could hear me, but now I can hear myself, so great. There is a public works septic sludge tanker truck. Imagine how many, typing that, I think you lose the rhythm of the grant narratives, which you can't really help it, so. Lot going on there, but that's to replace the 2001, Mike, is it a one?
Yes, that's about right.
It's a big old blue septic truck, and it's an international brand, and, so it would be potentially to replace that truck. And so we're gonna apply for disaster relief funding for those, few items with the USDA Community Facilities Program. And then we can, if we are awarded, you all would see that again when you go to appropriate the funding, much like you did tonight, did the consent agenda with those, budget ordinance amendments. I think we may have talked about this at the February council meeting when we talked about, since then, we've added the sludge truck to our list of damaged things. I do not, no, sir.
All right. Move right along.
We just need a motion to approve that resolution, or to adopt the resolution.
I make a motion, we adopt the resolution 260310.04.
Get a motion, have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right.
And Mr. Mayor, now we'll welcome up our crack engineering team from McGill. I'll also take a moment of personal privilege to say that Fred DeBell has joined us, so he maintains the perfect attendance streak for those people track.
I'd like to say I appreciate the gentleman in the blue. You hide Fred, I can't see him.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is R.J. Mosley. I work for a company called McGill Associates, and we've been pleased to partner with the town, working with Zach and with Mike and all of the town staff through this project. And so tonight is a step in the process for the town's asset inventory and assessment that will kind of check a box, so to speak, for the funding agency, which is one purpose, but the more important purpose is to begin to roll out all of the information from the AIA to all of you, because that's something that we found, we believe in our experience, that it's a tool that can be used by clients of ours all across the state, just like the town of Bowling Springs, to help make good decisions, make informed decisions, and chart a healthy, viable future for your utility system and your ratepayers. So I'm gonna see if I can figure the clicker out here.
You may have to point it toward the laptop.
Back over here, okay. So before I do click off of that screen though, I wanted to say, you got a few project numbers and a few things here that are important for the process, if you will, in the funding agency. There we go.
Wrong way.
Wrong direction.
I never clicked the right way.
Alright, go down to go forward.
Yeah, I don't.
So what is an AIA, as I've said, Asset Inventory and Assessment, so we'll keep using that acronym all night. And I'll say, for the purposes of this presentation, do not feel like you're out of place if I say an acronym and you wanna throw your hand up and say, wait a minute, what's that mean? You're using a different language, so we'll do that a lot. I'll try to explain those when I can, but again, if anything comes up along the way, don't feel bad about stopping us where we are to ask what that means. So, but asset inventory, so what are the assets that the town owns? What is the inventory list literally look like? Just like a store would have an inventory of products that they wanna sell, you need to have some kind of an inventory of the water and sewer assets that you have. And everything, by the way, that we're talking about tonight with this AIA work is all specific to the water and sewer enterprise fund, the water and sewer utilities, okay? So we're not incorporating anything for those vehicles and rolling stock that you guys just heard a little bit about, not incorporating anything for Parks and Rec. This is all about the enterprise fund system. No general fund dollars, no general fund assets in any of this that we're discussing. So the asset inventory becomes the list, and there are different ways that that list can basically be developed, but then we want to also assess the condition of those items. And so I think we're actually, we've got a couple of slides there that are duplicated. I had some industry standard slides there that we are missing in that deck, but when you look at the water and sewer industry, when you look at the assessment of nationwide infrastructure in the entire country, the American Society of Civil Engineers rates overall infrastructure as C. So let that sink in for a minute. And so that's roads, that's bridges, that's solid waste, that's everything. But when you look at specifically the water wastewater sector, the ASCE also then assesses a score of D to water and wastewater. So not only are we in a pretty bad spot overall in the entire country, the water wastewater industry, just because it's out of sight, out of mind, it's been easy to ignore for the last 50, 60 years or more. And so the ASCE assesses that condition overall at a D. And I'll say that to say, that's an issue that's prevalent all across the country. And so Bowling Springs is no different. But the fact of the matter remains that different states have different methods for approaching utilities in their states. And in North Carolina, about 10 or 15 years ago, they started really assessing more how systems were coming to them and asking for money for projects to rehabilitate and replace and to expand. And they developed this group within DEQ that takes a look at things from a little more holistic perspective. And that eventually gave birth to this asset inventory and assessment program, which is meant to give people a chance to kind of stop and really develop that assessment, figure out where they are in the world, figure out what pipelines they have, how much they have, what size are they, what material are they, what condition are they in. And so all of that kind of led us down a path to where the state started funding these asset inventory and assessment grants. And so this is a project that is largely grant. I think you do have a local match that was maybe 15%, but it was in your case, might have actually been ARPA money.
I think it was.
So if that's the case, then you actually have zero investment in this particular effort, since it was ARPA funds, they waived that local match requirement. But it basically gives you free money to come perform this overall exercise to be able to understand better what your system looks like. So let's talk a little bit about the scope of your AIAs. So in the instance of the water system, in the instance of the sewer system, first one we've got up there, that included some updates to the mapping systems that you already had. Town already had some GIS mapping capabilities of the sewer lines that you own and maintain. But then it also went a step further to put CCTV camera equipment into some of these sections of sewers, which were kind of cherry picked by staff and their understanding of areas with issues, areas where they may have to go jet lines more frequently, where they may have to go work on repairs more frequently, something along those lines. So we did some CCTV work and smoke testing to all help inform the integrity of the system. And then that also included evaluation of the pump stations and of the wastewater treatment plant that you own and maintain. And so the second major part of the scope of the work for this AIA on the sewer side, and keep in mind the water side and the sewer side worked separate grant awards. They were kind of synced up because they were awarded at the same time, and so they tracked together all the way through. But technically it's kind of double the money, double the work, double the end result in the reports that you'll get. And so the second part of the sewer system scope was to develop a hydraulic model for the sewer system in looking at your system and looking at where development exists and looking at where development might grow in the future, or where you might add on existing structures even to become new sewer customers. The hydraulic modeling of your system takes a step of the mapping and builds upon that step to help you understand and assess the capacities of your sewer system. And so that way you've got better assurance on where you can and cannot add new flow to the system. And so then we go through the effort of the asset inventory and the assessment of the condition, and we look at the hydraulic modeling, and we look at the CCTV, all to help inform our data set, if you will, because we want this overall evaluation to be objective, not just subjective. And so we need some kind of a basis to be able to compare 60 feet of sewer line on one side of town with 60 feet of sewer line on the other side of town. And 60 feet of this pipe material versus 60 feet of that pipe material. And so all of these are steps that are leading us up to be able to develop what we will refer to later, and Greg will explain that better to you. That will refer to a criticality score or a priority ranking score. And so then it gives us a tool that really kind of becomes a list of, okay, we can't eat the elephant all at one time, so where do we want to start biting onto that elephant first? And so the priority list helps us then kind of break that down and decide where to go. Where is it going to be most advantageous to spend your money first? And so that all leads us into developing then a CIP. And you'll hear that term a lot tonight too. CIP stands for Capital Improvements Plan. And so that essentially just becomes a 10-year plan. It's kind of a standard timeline for efforts like this in our industry, is to look at a 10-year planning window and decide in that 10-year window what kind of projects can we afford to complete, what kind of projects will we make adjustments to make sure that we can accomplish, and then what order are they gonna happen in? Are we gonna pay for those with cash? Are we gonna pay for those with debt? How are we gonna make those projects happen? And so that CIP table itself really kind of just becomes a schedule, and we'll talk more about that as we get to it. But the CIP then is a logical step into asset management plan, which then is a fancy term for taking the information of an inventory and assessment and the information from a CIP, and then you add to it the operations and maintenance aspects of it. How do we manage this system that we already have and the system that we're going to have? How do we manage it, operate it in a way that gives it the best chance of success? So you're kind of looking at the system condition, and you're looking at how you may improve the system with projects, and then this AMP pump component, it brings to the table, how are we going to improve and operate this system at its optimum without spending capital, okay? So it's kind of independent of the capital aspect itself. And so part of the effort for your project was to make sure that we integrate the asset management program and CIP and all of the inventory and assessment data. Make sure that we integrate that with the software that your staff is already running, for some of the way that they manage the system already today. And then beyond developing that CIP, the next logical step in accomplishing a CIP is to figure out what does the enterprise fund need when it comes to revenue modeling. What does the enterprise fund need in terms of revenue to be able to achieve this plan? And it's a little bit dramatic, but I like to tell folks that if you come up with a plan, it can be a great plan. It can be an excellent plan, the best plan, CIP plan we've ever laid out right here in front of me. But if I develop that plan and I don't develop or have a means to pay for that plan was just a wish list, right? So that doesn't move the needle, that doesn't sustain the system or improve your condition overall. It doesn't do anything to address the fact that every year, all of this infrastructure gets older and more susceptible to major breakdowns. So we take that step with the enterprise fund modeling to be able to illustrate prospective outcomes. And I want to reiterate everything else we're talking about with the CIP and with the revenue modeling, even with the CIP. These are a plan developed in 2026. They're a snapshot in time. Things are going to change. We've never developed a CIP or an AMP or revenue model yet. It didn't have to change some after it was adopted, implemented, followed, or not followed. It's a plan. It is going to change. It's not the budget document that I know everybody is in it up to their neck right now, right? It's a different item that will inform the decisions you make through that budgeting process, but it's not meant to be a black and white, copy it right over to the budget, unless that's what this board decides. So the revenue modeling is part of it, and it is incorporated. You'll see that same bullet when we get to the other slide on the water system, because it's relative to both the water and the sewer systems. And of course, deliver final report. Part of that is this discussion tonight, so that you all get to hear that, and then we literally hand over the report itself that has all of this information in it. So we'll try to pick the pace up a little bit as we move along here, but I want to make sure that you all get a good background of what's included with all this. So similarly then, on the water system side, we have the GIS and field mapping updates. So using that same GIS data set that you already had, doing some updates to it as we proof over the maps with Mike and Todd, and make sure that everything is, you know, the right line size in the right location on the right side of the road as best we know, all of those kind of little tweaks and adjustments. And then we do the same thing, assessing existing conditions and prioritizing the needs based on the criteria that Greg will tell you about in a little bit. And then we developed, in this case, a tool that you didn't have, that is something we found our clients really do benefit from, and that's a hydraulic model of your distribution system. And so not only does that help you potentially identify areas where your existing water system may be a little lacking, either in capability of moving flow or maintaining pressure, those kind of things. It gives you some tools to be able to plan with and adjust for in the future on where would we want that new transmission line to go? Where would it need to tie in? What size would it need to be? How could we improve the pressure to this particular problem area where people are, you know, always the first ones to kind of have an issue? That's a tool now that you've got that is coming to you as part of this AIA effort that will continue to be useful for you in the future. And then again, we're back into developing the CIP, the AMP, synchronized with the asset management software you're running now, utility fund revenue modeling, and then summarize everything into the reports, the graphs, and everything that we'll go over as we move on through tonight. And so with that, I'll let Greg come on and start to begin to explain some of the scoring metrics and the assessment criteria.
All right, Mayor and Council, what you have here is a risk matrix. It's 1 to 25. I heard you looking at buying a new vehicle. I know we didn't do vehicles, but something new rolling in, piece of pipe, vehicle, that'd be a 1. Beyond that, everything goes up. 25, of course, is more critical and needs more immediate attention for whatever piece of equipment it is. So what we did is we scored the pipes on this scale, water and sewer pipes and equipment, based on, for pipes specifically, age, size, and material. He said, damn, there we go. This is your water system pipeline materials. As you can see, the majority of your system's PVC. You have a few other materials there, just for reference. One of the more critical ones you want to notice is your age. Your water system, you have a fairly young water system, it's not too bad. But that goes into the assessment of the overall water lines. And then your water system pipeline sizes. As you can see, the majority of yours are 6 inch. It's just your system. As I was saying, by assessment, and I'm sorry, I didn't announce my name when it came up, but RJ did, it's Greg Padgett. The larger the pipe, the more critical, if I can back up onto that risk matrix, the larger the pipe, the more critical it is if it breaks. For instance, a 1 inch line running out here, maybe to the park, it breaks. Only person that's affected is the park or one single house. Not as critical, so that scoring is gonna rate down. Now, the 16 inch transmission line or 12 inch transmission line going through town, it fails maybe 100 people, maybe Gardner Webb's calling and complaining, and you don't want that shut down. So that becomes a more critical line and more reasonable to have to replace sooner. This is your map, and I apologize, where we identified some of the projects based on those scores. I've identified 3 projects. And my eyes are terrible, guys. And I got the wrong side. Project 1, 2, and 3, and 4. It's 4 projects. I actually had a name on the other slide. But this is based on the score. These are your 4 projects that were identified on the water line as the highest priority. And that again is, that's based on the scoring we got from, from the inventory list. This is a picture of your booster station. While we're here on the booster station, I'll say, very well maintained. I don't recall, I think it's like 45 years old. Very good condition for the age. Very, very good condition for the age. My hat's off to the staff. From what I saw of this and other things, they take very good care of the equipment they have and materials they have. But they still age. Your water tank, just to view your water tank, and I apologize, I couldn't get Duke Energy to remove the power lines for me to take a better picture. But that's the best I could do. Water tank again, excellent condition. I did make a reference to possibly increasing the operating range on your water tank to improve water quality. You have no issues with water quality, but it would be a way to improve water quality. I am out of order. Here goes, let's jump straight into the sewer. This is your pipeline material for your sewer. Is there any questions as I'm going through this?
Can you explain increasing the range of the water tower? I'm confused.
Yeah, I was.
Your operating range, and I don't recall the exact number, you've maybe got 25 foot of operating range, but or head there. You're only you're moving 5 foot of water instead of moving all the water.
Okay.
So you're not keeping as much water fresh. And you're not having any violations, so it's working, but if you wanted to turn the water over, that would be one thing.
How do you improve that?
By allowing the water tank to go down more, but that brings in other issues with pressure. So it's a fine edge to play with. Another way to improve quality would be to put a mixer in, to keep that more fresh. But if you're not having issues, and I've not seen any violations, usually in the August to September time for THMs, then it's fine. It's just a recommendation. But when it gets hot, that's when you do tend to have all the issues some cities do with the water not turning over.
Is that something we have direct control over, or is that something that?
Yeah, it has to, I'm sorry. It has to I'm working on assumption here. It would have to do with the valve, that we would turn on with the city of Shelby, because they would be fine if the valve was on all the time and the water tower ran over, because we're paying them for the water coming in, so it wouldn't bother them a bit.
I'm not recommending that.
Yeah, we could adjust that, by allowing the valve to turn on, because we adjust where the booster station is, the valve has an automatic shut-off switch, so when the tank gets so high, the valve will close. And we can adjust that as needed.
And again, it may affect the pressure. Mike's here, it may be an issue where you lose a little more pressure, but I do understand But you don't necessarily need the water tank for your regular day-to-day pressure. You get enough from Shelby to push your day-to-day, so that's just an option. Any more questions on water before I jump over to the sewer? This is your sewer. As you can see, the majority of it is clay. And without even turning to the age, I can tell you, it's all gonna be over, because clay's not been used in a long time. When we get into pipe, okay, I gotta do this. All right, sewer age, as you can see, the majority of it, 54%, is over 50 years old. It's an older system. And then your pipeline size. And I'm not gonna go, well, I only have a few slides. This is a picture, as you can see, Wood Hill Drive. This is where we did some of the camera work that RJ mentioned previously. Staff had said they had some issues in that area. This is just 4 of probably 100 pictures that are actually in the report. But as you can see at the joints there, this is after it's already been cleaned. They clean it and then they come through with a camera. You've got fine roots at all these, and this was down Wood Hill Drive. That's typical of clay. Roots find the cracks or the joints. And just imagine everywhere those roots, there's water getting in as well. So that's where you're dealing with extra water at the wastewater plant that you're having to treat, and that's money. So by replacing those lines, you fix that. This is your, yeah, I'm way out of order. This is your force mains, just an assessment of force mains on your water system. Everything looks good there. There is some age, but I think everything rated well. And there's a lot of other stuff to these charts that's kind of hidden. Your pump stations, all pump stations. I did make a note on Ramsgate. I can't read that, but Ramsgate does need some work. And I think the manager did tell me they may be replacing that, but if not, in lieu of not replacing it, it needs some work. The controls are falling off of the wood. It's old. It's reached its age. It's rust inside the well, and I think I got a picture of the well actually here in a little bit. Here's some of the costs we came up for on the pump stations, just speaking of that. There's Ramsgate, some other things. Any questions on any of those? The big item there is Ramsgate, $25,000. Spring Forest, you see the cover. Recommending anyone that doesn't have a cover on it, and I'll show you a picture of what I'm talking about for a cover here in a little bit. It's very helpful, and it also makes the life of the equipment last longer. If you ask Mike or his guys when they're working on these, it's typically when it's warm, when it's raining, so you're out there working electrical components also in the rain. So it's a safety factor as well, but it also protects the equipment. And all these pump stations are also mounted on wood rods. Nowadays we're building them with extruded aluminum or stainless or something like that that lasts a lot longer.
We usually give Todd a lightning rod when he's working on them. So far, it's not working.
And I'll say I've personally been pump stations when it's raining. It can be.
What areas of town gravity to Ramsgate?
Just Ramsgate,
It's a very small pump station.
just that one development there. And so so with the latest, state revolving fund, application that we've done, which is part of that principal forgiveness, we're looking at eliminating that pump station and having all of that gravity back down into an existing sewer line, just south of where Crestbrook Circle and Tony Street are, which was in our 2021 capital improvement plan. So we've taken that and applied, and we're looking, and we'll know about that in April 18th, but I wouldn't swear to it. I don't know if it's April 18th, but that's the next SWIA meeting now. Can't keep that in my head. RJ says yes, that's when it is.
And here, while he was talking about, I went and put up a picture of Ramsgate. You can see the controls are a little worse for wear. They're fine, but, you know, they're connected to a telephone pole and some rotten wood, and that's the inside of the well. You got rusting rails. Again, I wouldn't spend money on them if you're definitely replacing them. But also note you have a small amount of grease. I noted that. Not enough to be concerned about, but it may warrant just refreshing your fog ordinance, putting more public notice out there that, hey, don't flush your grease down the drain. Everybody does it, but that's what happens, and it's hard on the pumps and the plants. Now I'll back it up to the pump stations. Was there any other costs on, or any other questions on any of these?
Those covers you're talking about, did you have a picture of what you're talking about there?
Yeah, right there on the right,
Okay?
That's a basic one, I mean, just something to put cover on it, keep the weather off of them, help keep the weather off of
What's
them,
the cost of the
and to
cover
keep
on
the
it?
weather off of your employees while they're working.
What's the cost of the cover like that?
I think I threw in a cost, it's probably a little on the high side, cause I was thinking a little heavier cover.
We like high side grid, that way we're pleasantly surprised.
I lumped it in with the remounting and the covering, so it's probably 10,000 pump station on the high side, 10 to 15,000. And that's replacing the wood too, going back in with extruded aluminum. Inflation, it's hard for me to predict on many things anymore, but I
Well,
think
that's a
that's,
guesstimation.
I think lately that's close to the price we've seen. And I know I'm jumping everywhere. All right, that was the pump station cost. And here's the assets of the wastewater treatment plant. Again, I'll try to read this. I did make some notes on the wastewater treatment plant. Most part, everything's good. Had one blower out, no big deal. It's normal wear and tear. You got two others. The redundancy is something you want in any wastewater treatment plant, any pump station. That's why you have two pumps. Something goes down, you got another one to take care of it. Here's what I did put in for the wastewater plant. I see a need for additional on-site sludge storage. Since you are land applying, as I understand, we have a long wet spill, you may not be able to get out and land apply. You're at the mercy of the weather, you're also at the mercy of the landowner. Landowner may choose sometime down the road not to let you land apply. So that goes into another point I've got, doing an analysis for alternatives for land application. Just so you got in your back pocket, so you know if this landowner doesn't want it anymore, what are you gonna do with it? What are you gonna do with it? Are you gonna take the landfill? Are you gonna put a dryer in? What, are you gonna find another landowner? I suggest you look at that. That may not happen today or tomorrow, but it could. You know, landowner passes away, family doesn't want you on the property anymore, all kinds of things happen. Or they sell it to a company that wants to put a development in there, who knows? Also replace bar screen. I do have a picture of that. And I lumped that into install second bar screen for redundancy and consider replacing grid system. As I see it, the bar screen's a little inadequate. That's actually a good picture of your effluent. I'll come back to that. Yeah, these pictures. There is your bar screen's the middle. There's the gaps in that are not very good. Those are a little bit big, and there's some, I couldn't get it all in that picture. Some of them are a little bent up. You can get larger material stuff in there. That's not good on your pumps. Any material goes through there, it's material that you've got to run through a pump that is hard on the pump, and also, it's not good for land applying either. So a tighter or closer screen would be good. And I recommend a redundant one as well, because if something happens here, you don't have any other way other than bypass it, and then you're not screening at all. The top one's just an overview of your basin. The lower one's an overview of your secondaries. Now, I'm going back forward again. I apologize. We'll go back to that. That's your plant from the influent, and your effluent's on the right. That's your final product. And that's what you want to see. That's crystal clear water, looks good. That's what your goal is, to see that. So no matter what I say about what's going on, you're getting the job done. But these things we're pointing out are things that are gonna make it easier to do and keep you where you're making that clean water going forward. It
You
will
can
get
take a
harder.
ladle down there today and get a drink of water. Yeah, you just stick a cup in right there under that effluent and you can drink it. Todd won't do it, but, I don't know, I've
I
tried
had a
it.
question on page, I think you passed over.
And he's on 86, I'm sorry.
I know, I'm needing to back up to 83 where he gave us some good scores. I'm trying to figure out how we got good scores on that page.
Where does it
Inventory
go?
asset management, WWTP.
Okay, yes, sir.
So we got digesters 1 and 2 are 60, 66, backup generator 66.
Yep,
Aeration basin 66.
yep,
That's years old.
yep.
So how's that good?
They're at the end of their life expectancy, but they're, relative to your system, they're working well. They're in good shape, no cracks or evident. Concrete's good, they're working. As long as they're working, they're good, But yes, they're at their end of their age based on AWWA standards, American Water Works Association. But, yeah, relative to your system, they're good. I do each system separately. I mean, I may have some 60-year-old ones at another plant that don't look half as
I
good.
got you.
But like Mr. Mosley was referring to, this is a snapshot in time for the present moment.
Correct,
Does that take into account what our, sewer capacity, or if we grow, or
Correct.
storms? I mean,
Correct.
it really is just a real quick look right now.
What you have here in place now is adequate for what you have now, exactly. If you were gonna expand, that's a whole other animal. You may have capacity there. I didn't really look at the capacity beyond what you have.
Okay.
Was there another question I answered
That's it.
adequately? Okay.
Sorry about that.
Good, yeah, ask whatever, please. And there was the wastewater, we touched on those. Here was the sewer we identified. Now, you'll see there's a lot more sewer projects identified. This goes back to that clay pipe. Let me preface this, the water system's about 45 miles. Your sewer system is about 28 miles, so roughly half, we'll go half. The sewer system's a lot older, and the material is a clay, and that clay is susceptible to breaking, and you saw all the joints. It's time to start, the life expectancy of that clay is up. It's time to start replacing it, improve that ionized, so you don't necessarily have to build a new plant for new capacity. You gain some of it back by fixing some of those lines. You're losing some, and I did look at the numbers, and I can't refer to them, but I'm sure you're getting some iron out. When it rains, the flow is going up to the Western plant. I was actually shocked at Wood Hill because that's where that's at, where I was standing, looking in the manhole myself. I watched the guys pull a big root out, and there wasn't a tree that close, to be honest. And I've been in this business 30 years. I was shocked at how big a root had made it into that, in the middle of that street. I wouldn't have expected that would be my worst area in town. And I'm not saying it is your worst area, but it definitely had a big root in it.
The clay pipe you speak of, is that what is commonly known as terracotta pipe?
Yeah. Terracotta, VCP,
Okay.
clay, whatever, yeah. It's in usually 4-foot sections, 3 to 4-foot sections. All right, you saw the plant, the influent again, that's just an overview of the plant, and, Ramsgate, we already reviewed. And this is just a typical submersible, to show you one, and see the one on the left's not got a cover, I recommend it, it's covered. And it looks great now, but it's attached to wood, that wood will rot 10, 15 years, and then you'll have where panels are falling off and stuff like that. It makes it, that one is a lot better pump station. I'm not saying that's the type of cover you want, but it's better than nothing. Just some more pictures of your pump stations. Again, I want to point out, with the age of stuff, everything's well maintained in us all. This is a pump station, this is a sewer pump station. You can eat off the floor at this place. It's nice. Beaver, and then there's Branch. This is gonna jump into somebody else's stuff. Dale, or maybe me. Okay. I think I got on mine. There may be some more spread in there. Was there any more questions before I sit down? I'm sorry.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's kind of a quick snapshot of the overall inventory, and so just kind of restate one more time. That's just us taking a look at everything in your system, as best information that you have available, and then the additional information that we're able to garner out of like the CCTV work. And so it's just trying to all of a sudden develop a ranking, if you will, a scored numerical value that you can then look at and say, let's go grab this piece of sewer line to replace first, this piece second, third, fourth, same thing with the water system, and then looking at your treatment plant or your pump stations, where does it make sense for us to spend money? Because you don't necessarily want to spend money on a brand new sludge digester if the concrete, even though it may be old, if the concrete's in pretty decent shape.
Right.
Similarly speaking, as Patrick said, this is relative to your system. Something that's 66 years old here may be very different than a steel tank that's 66 years old at a plant down on the coast, right? So all of those kind of things factor in, and all of those are based on, he alluded to it, like AWWA standards. So for instance, AWWA standards are gonna tell you that ductile iron pipe that makes up a significant portion of your water system, that it's good for a lifespan of about 50 years, give or take. That's the way literature would read. Now, we know good and well, that there's a lot of ductile iron pipe and even cast iron pipe, which is older, all of which has been in the ground for at or more than 50 years. And that's universal. That's why Mike and the guys wind up having to go repair leaks on Main Street, so to speak, on Christmas Eve. It's going to happen. But what you're trying to accomplish with this is to catch up and catch the worst sections first. So we get that list made, and then we start looking at, all right, now that we know what we need to do, we can develop some kind of an idea of the estimated value of all of that work. And then we start looking at how it's going to impact the water and sewer fund. And so the water and sewer fund is responsible for water pumping when it's necessary, even though you don't have to pump that often from Shelby. It's also responsible for the storage, it's responsible for the distribution. So that's the water lines, that's the valves, that's the hydrants, that's the tanks, that's everything that goes into getting that water to your customer's tap. On the wastewater side, you're talking about the collection of the wastewater. And so you're talking about bringing that flow into the gravity sewers, wherever they may be. They flow sometimes to a pump station, sometimes they flow all the way to the treatment plant. But it's the flow of the wastewater, the collection of it, bringing it all to that central point at the wastewater treatment plant for its actual treatment. And I said this earlier, but I'll say it again because it's very easy for people to forget. This is about the enterprise fund. This is a business, okay? This is a business that the town of Bowling Springs owns and is required by the North Carolina legislature, and the state auditor checks up on that every year to make sure that your business of water and sewer enterprise fund is operating in a self-supporting way. What does that mean? Well, it means we've got to make a little bit of profit. We've got to operate in the black. And so you all set that budget at the beginning of the year, and it's set up hopefully to be planned to make a profit every year. And then you make adjustments throughout the year if you have to make adjustments to make that happen. But you're not operating that business to make a profit and turn around and pay shareholders a dividend. We're not talking about Duke Energy here. We're talking about the town of Bowling Springs system. So why does this need to make a profit? It needs to make a profit to generate a little bit of savings, if you will. It's the common way to refer to it, maybe more in personal finance. But in the concept of the enterprise fund, we're talking about fund balance. So it's just like the fund balance for the general fund, except it's separate. It's its own fund balance for the water sewer. So you're trying to make enough money every year with that system to be able to operate, cover your expenses, and then have a little bit to put back into that fund balance, so that when you come into a year where you need to spend some money on big capital, you've got some money set aside for that. And we'll talk at more length about how we get to that. But I always like to kind of drive that point home, make it really clear to everybody. We're not talking about taxes with the enterprise fund. We're talking about user fees that are meant to support the business. So looking at your system overall, you're talking about roughly 1,800 residential customers and another 200 customers that are non-residential, so that's either commercial or your industrial, any of those that you have that are not just residential users. And then when you look at the kind of the gross total of your enterprise fund from recent years, you're talking about a business that's a $2.4 million enterprise fund business. So, you know, when you're making decisions about how you're going to operate and how you're going to spend that money, you're making decisions on how do we want to run a $2.4 million business for the benefit of all the town's water and sewer customers. Okay, and so we talked a lot about the CIP and what it includes, and we talked about the assessment of assets. How do we get from assets in a list into a CIP? And how do we develop projects? And so a big part of that is figuring out, like Greg said, you had project 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, why do 4 projects? Why not just do one big project, right? So we want to be able to break those up in ways that they're affordable, and we have to then kind of do that with some consideration for the finances. But how do projects qualify to make it onto the CIP? And this again is something that is relative to Bowling Springs, because what is significant to Bowling Springs in a capital project may be relatively insignificant to the city of Shelby, may be insignificant to a city of Charlotte, or a King County, or anybody else who's kind of a bigger fish in the pond, if you will. And so, when you look at, how things make it onto that list, they have to meet one of these 4 criteria in the list here. It's either through viability, or it's through efficiency, or it's through the needs because of growth, or it's because of regulatory, all right? If you can't bring a project that doesn't fit into one of those 4 categories, it's not in your CIP that you're looking at in front of you now. And that's meant to be an acknowledgement that this is not a wish list. This isn't just taking ratepayers' funds and throwing them out frivolously. This is real needs that make something of reasonable, qualified expense that needs to be planned for in the life of this utility system. And so, I'll just say succinctly, the majority, if not 100% of your needs in your capital improvements plan are all centered around the viability component. And that's strictly just because you do have a system that's got a little bit of age on it, you do have some terracotta clay, you do have some pump stations that need some work. So, they are functioning, as Paget said, everything's functioning, meeting the permit limits, but they're going to need some attention in the future to continue to operate in a successful way. And so it really comes down to your system being viability, because efficiency's not that applicable. You don't really have a better, more efficient mousetrap, so to speak. You can't replace your sewer system components with new system components and they suddenly save you 20% power or 30% power. It's just, that technology is not available. At the same time, you don't have any imminent growth that we know of that's built into this plan. You know, so that would be 1,500 home subdivision that's on the books. It's gonna land right outside of town, and they're gonna be willing to pay you double outside, rates or something like that to be able to get access, to get service to their subdivision, because then it would make sense for the enterprise fund to even consider extending service to pick up those customers. We don't have any growth things like that. We don't have a new service that's gonna run to a new industry. It's on the horizon. There may be some thoughts and some ideas that are out there in the future, but as far as this plan goes, you don't have any of that in your system. And then there's regulatory, and thank goodness right now, the regulatory climate is still not too noisy. We will all across the country end up having to deal with the forever chemicals, your PFAS, your dioxanes. We literally today, Greg and I were talking to another client who's just gotten a draft permit update for their wastewater treatment plant, that they're gonna have to start sampling for some of those chemicals. Not enforcing them yet, but that's always a precursor to enforcement. So sometime before my career's over, I'm certain I'll be having to deal with trying to help clients overcome those kind of treatment techniques. When they come, they'll make their way onto everybody's CIP. But we don't have that issue in our situation with your assessment right now. But I always wanna kind of drive that point home before we get into some of the finances, because it's never popular to talk about how the finances are gonna have to change a little bit to help fund the plan and maintain the system. But I wanted to kind of just reiterate how these projects make their way into the plan. So with that, we're gonna hand out, and I'll ask Dale to come up and I'll hand those out as he starts talking about it. We're gonna hand out the actual capital improvements plan. And this is an 11x17 handout that just doesn't present itself very well on a big screen, so I'll give you all a hard copy of that.
Good evening, my name's Dale Sheepers. I've been with McGill about 10 years. Previous to that, I was local government, water sewer division manager type, utility director, public works director. So very familiar with what we're doing here and the purpose of our discussion this evening. I'm currently a financial analyst, and what that means is that once we figure out how big the elephant is, somebody's gotta figure out how we're gonna pay to get that into something manageable that we can deal with and continue to provide a service in a sustainable fashion. Okay, to meet all those requirements for regulations and other things, it's a balancing situation. So the first thing is the capital improvements plan. That's the one with all of the years of the planning period, 1 through 10. There's also a column out there for 11 through 11 plus. So it's not over in 10 years, it's gonna continue. And that kind of gives you a little preview as to what that magnitude is, moving from your 10 years of planning to what's gonna come next. Okay, the other thing you'll notice is that there are a good number of projects that are listed out there in year 11 plus. Okay, the reason for that is that now that we're looking at the dollars and cents part of this, what's it gonna mean to revenues that you're gonna need to support all the expenses that are coming forward with all of those capital type projects, operation and maintenance, all those sorts of things. The other part is affordability, right? If we need a lot more revenue, we're gonna have to get that from ratepayers. There is a small portion of of the model that is attributable to customer growth, which is how many new customers connect, because you can get more revenue by having more customers, but that number's pretty small. So if you're gonna raise more revenue with respect to ongoing expenses, that's gonna have to come from ratepayers. So it's gonna have to be rate adjustments, revenue, generating adjustments, to, your enterprise fund. Okay, now the model is specific to Boiling Springs. This isn't somebody else's model that you just put numbers in and hope you get the right thing out. This is specific to your community. Go through the audits, work with the budget numbers and so forth to build that model that's unique to Boiling Springs. Okay, so when you look at the CIP as it's presented to you, if we take all of those projects that are identified by the AIA only, which is what's the condition, what's the criticality, those sorts of things, it's the whole list. Okay, now we temper that with what's affordable and also with what are the things that we can defer because we know more about our system and how it works and the repairs and those sorts of things that have to happen than what an AIA formula can generate. I mean, does that make sense? As opposed to, you put the number into the AIA machine, you turn the crank, it gives you a list of things that says, in general, based on age and criticality, as you graded and rank these things, in general, that suggests that you need to do these number of things in the first 10 years. And we take a closer look at that and say, okay, we know more about this than just what the ranking and rating says, so we know that we can defer some things for that purpose. Then we also know that this has to be affordable, so there are some things that we have to defer a little bit because of affordability. Okay, so that's the CIP as it lays out. Okay, we also have another set of, well, a whole set of inputs that go into the model. Things like that growth rate that I talked about, things like the rate of inflation on certain components of the expenses. Your salaries and benefits are going to outpace usually other items like utilities and chemicals and supplies, things like that. They'll increase about 5% a year, maybe a little more, where the others are gonna be a little closer to the rate of inflation. Okay, so overall, the increase year over year is in the 3.5% to 4% range. So again, you can expect your rates to have to somewhat mirror that, at least to stay even with inflation. And on top of that is going to be your capital improvements. Okay, never forget that the most influence that you have over the cost of running your utility is how you manage your capital investment, right? If you leave it go too long and the list gets too long and it gets too critical and you get too many failures, you're gonna have to address that with a lot more capital, a lot more financial resource than if you So, the next handout that I have is where you put these numbers together and kind of figure out where you're going. Okay, so the top part of the handout, you did hand them all out, for now. Okay, so that's capital improvements, I'm sorry.
You're saying like capacity right now, like our sewer plant's running at probably 48%, not even 50% capacity. But we would have to add substantially a lot of homes or a major sewer project in order for that to really increase the revenue, to increase that whole line. You're saying right now it has minimal effect on.
Right. You don't have, and you could, well, with this handout, you can see, specifically on the top row, the top box is the revenues. And the very first one is the revenue that's generated from your existing customers. You'll notice that goes up slightly as you move across the page, which is a 1% growth in revenue based on customer growth. Okay? Then the next entry in the revenue box is the new revenue, which is primarily generated from rate. Rate increase, you need $255,000 more in the next year in revenue to support everything that you need to do to sustain your utility. Okay? So, on the expense side of the equation, you'll see that there are 4 components. One is operating expenses, which are things like pay the electric bill, contracted services, material supplies, repairs, that sort of thing. Capital outlay is what I like to term as cash financed capital improvements. So you're spending out of your fund balance to your available fund balance for a certain portion of that. Now, that does come into play because there are a host of key performance metrics that we use to identify and kind of track the health of your enterprise fund. And one of those is sufficiency of revenue above debt. So there's a benchmark that says if your debt is higher than a certain percentage of your total available revenue, then you might be in trouble. I mean, same thing happens when you apply for a home mortgage, right? They calculate your income and say so much of your income can go to the mortgage, and not anymore because we're not gonna underwrite that because you're not gonna pay for it. So that's nobody's business, not a bank's business to try to dictate that to you. So you have to know that yourself to say, when are we getting a little too heavy on the debt? Okay, so we look at that to help put this into perspective in terms of, is this sustainable? Is it affordable? Does it make sense? Are we doing the right thing? Okay. So you do have a little bit of existing debt. Some of it falls off in fiscal year 29, and it stays steady through the rest of the 10 years. And then the projected debt service, if you look back on your capital improvement schedule, you'll see the cells that are shaded in blue. Okay, there's a little legend down there at the bottom that says that those are anticipated to be funded by debt. Okay, the debt that we're talking about here is a typical bank loan. Terms on that, in today's definition, this is based on some conversations I've had with the LGC, looking at historically what are the bank terms looking like these days. And that's based on 15 years at market rate. Okay, a couple, 3 years ago, more of them were in the 20-year range, but it's getting a little tighter, and the notes are 15 years as opposed to 20. So that does affect, the long-term cost, and also has an effect on rates, so we have to support that. So those are the assumptions going into that. The financial outcomes, that's basically, here's how much you have to pay for, and then is it net income positive or negative? The red indicates a negative net income. Don't despair too much because That's what you have fund balance for, is if you collect a little less than what you spend, and that, without considering the CIP, that would be wet year versus dry year, that kind of thing, can affect, and your fund balance will either go up or down based on what you're expecting as opposed to what's happening with the weather. But this is independent of that. This is saying that, we're gonna go ahead and spend out of fund balance a certain amount, manageable amount, to support our 10-year forecast. Okay? So the next question, or the next item that we address is, that we're looking at is, the effect on customer bill. So kind of an average residential water sewer bill is about 3,000 gallons, and today's rate, you would pay $60.30 for that. Okay? And in order to support the capital improvements plan with all of the other expenditures to generate a state of full cost recovery, is what the textbook calls it, you would have to have a 12% rate increase, which would generate about 11% more revenue in order to cover the needs that we have projected for the first of the 10 years that we're planning through this cycle. Okay? So then the single financial indicator that gives you like the single snapshot of are we good or bad right now today is your fund balance. And fund balance, again, is net income positive, goes into the bank account, net income negative, a little bit comes out. Okay? So the benchmark there is a minimum, an absolute minimum of about 35%. A comfort range somewhere in the neighborhood of 50, 60, 70%, something like that. And that is a percentage of fund balance that you have compared to total expenses for that given year. Okay, so in other words, 58% of an entire year without one nickel of revenue coming in could be paid for out of available cash, i.e. fund balance. Okay? So as we look across the page, we start out at about 60%, in 10 years we end up at about 60%, fluctuates a little bit, pretty reasonable, not big wide swings and kind of out of control sort of a thing, but it is well managed through that 10-year period. Okay? The bad news is, to get there, you have to have double-digit rate increases for the first 5 years to make that work. Okay, now, also remember that this is all predicated on those assumptions that we have, starting out saying that on all the blue ones, we're gonna sell debt, 15 years, market rate, okay? There is funding, state revolving fund, which is 20 years at half market rate, that can be an advantage. There are possibilities of principal forgiveness or other grants or other things that are out there that can make this better for you. I don't want to give you a rosy picture here and say you'll get all this free money that's going to rain down from the sky and everything will be fine and no worries, no hassles, unicorns and butterflies and that sort of thing. It's, let's take the most conservative, well, not maybe the most conservative, but a very conservative approach to this thing and say, if you gotta go on your own and you gotta take care of it with what you have available to you, this is kind of what it's gonna look like. Okay? So, the next thing I did was, I thought, I'd like graphs that can help put a lot of things together because, as we talked about before, this is a balance between what you have and what you need, okay? What you need to pay for, what's more critical, what can be deferred a bit, and how much is it gonna cost. So we got several items here that we have to hold in a balance. So what I did was I synthesized all of these tables up on the top into that chart. Okay, the chart shows you current fiscal year FY26 plus 10 years, columns are all of the expenses that are out of the tables on the top, okay, in the various, functions of each one of those. Whether it's capital outlay, which is, spending out of your available cash, projected debt service, so each one of those blue cells calculate what the debt service would be on those debt issuances. A little bit of debt that you currently have, which is the orange, and then the operating expenses that you can see start out at the dashed line to the left and exceed the dashed line on the right-hand side. Okay, so what that tells us is that if you take your existing rates and you don't raise them at all, about a third of that column is something that is above your sustainable limit. Okay, so you kind of see as you march across, how much are we either gaining or losing in the process, okay? Then at the bottom is just a quick recap of what is the total CIP and the various functional components, water distribution, sewer treatment, and sewer collection. So you can see that it's a fairly even spread between the three, and these are all in the dollars in which construction is anticipated. So it's inflated from today's dollars. That's why you won't see Greg's numbers in the various project costs matching up here, because they've been inflated to the year in which it would occur. That way we can calculate, a debt service that is in future dollars, because we have to raise the revenue in order to pay the future dollars, not today's numbers, those things, okay? So that's all how this all fits together. So I'll pause there for questions that you might have.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So on the draft CIP, in the blue are the prioritizations that we need to get done, correct?
Yes.
Okay. For the rate increases for the next 10 years, does that cover the total balance of the 25 million? Or is that just to get us through the blue?
That's to get it through the blue. So the 13,658, the 10-year CIP cost, is generated by everything through the FY10 column. And then 11 plus is what do you gotta do once you get to year 10. So these things, in essence, when you index this plan to the next 10 years, which would be 2 through 11, you start bringing some of those things in from 11 into your 10-year window as you move ahead.
So we'll still have over $20 million worth of infrastructure will need to be fixed.
After you,
On top of all this,
right.
yeah.
And then after that next 10 years or so, there's gonna be that much more, and much more, and that much more. And that column, and I applaud you, that column is there for that purpose, so you can look at that and say, the worst of it is not today, and maybe not tomorrow, or maybe not in year 10. The worst of it may be further down the line, but you get to 10 years and it gets a little fuzzy. I mean, we could go to 20 years and it gets even fuzzier. We go to 30 and you're throwing a dart.
Right.
And we're not gonna do that. We're gonna concentrate on the things that we need to understand today, again, to help inform you to make the decision as best you can. Any other questions?
Well, just looking at the CIP plan, the dollars, so, the 10-year CIP cost is 13.6545 million or whatever, that's for 10 years.
Yes.
And then after 11 years, the cost, 11 years plus is 25,236,500, which is almost double what we're looking at in the next 10 years.
Yes.
I mean, am I reading that right?
Yes, you're reading that right.
Okay.
And again, you'll know more about it in 10 years' time or 8 years' time, or as you're systematically reviewing, when do we bite off the next ones here?
Right.
And quite frankly, in some situations, you find that you make your list based on something you do in 2026, and by the time you get to about 2030, then there's things you didn't think of that are on the list that have to maybe rearrange some things that come later.
Right.
One good example of that, I mentioned the regulatory, I mentioned the PFAS, the forever chemicals, and today, you're not responsible for treating those. But, like I said, in 2026, 2027 budget year, we have another client right now in Western North Carolina that just got a permit that's gonna make them start sampling for those chemicals. So that permit gets renewed in 2026, it becomes applicable in 2027, 2028. That's good for 2028 through 5 years, 29, 30, 31, 32. I expect for that particular client that by 2033, they're gonna have some kind of a limit on forever chemicals in their wastewater discharge. So there is nothing in anybody's CIP that we're working with that addresses that potential
At this time.
issue at this time. So that's a good point to kind of bring up the idea of reminding ourselves this is a plan at this snapshot in time. This is not a plan that we would recommend you do in 2026 and then you forget about it and blindly follow it for the next 10 years. It's gonna need to change. It's gonna need to get updated. Yeah, things are gonna change year over year. But that 11 plus column is mainly an idea of acknowledging that we know, even with what we've assessed thus far, you can't possibly tackle everything you need to tackle in this next 10 years. This is about an idea of we need to begin this committed strategy to year after year after year reinvest in the system. And we know that when we get to the end of 10 years, we're not done.
Right.
We've got to keep going.
Any other questions?
Really good thing, I like to be able to see it in a graph, and I like to be able to see the numbers.
Well, this is the one page.
Yeah.
My approach to this is, you got one page, the manager, you all can use to say, here's what it looks like. What do you wanna know? You know, here's our revenue growth projected for, existing customers, and existing customer base. Not a lot of growth there,
Generally, the customer wants to know how much is this gonna cost me more this year than next year, or on down the line. And then we can say, well, this is how we're maintaining the continuous improvement in the system and
Sure.
water quality of sewer.
Right. Plus, you just raised my rate, what do I get? Well, okay, first year you get, $140,000 worth of capital improvements, and over a 10-year period, it's somewhere around 14 million, so you are getting something in return for your additional investment.
They might not see it that way.
Yeah, unfortunately, if people would see some kind of building or structure, they don't see the pipes in the ground or the waste water coming out clear.
I mean, seeing what we've done on Main Street here,
Mhm.
they see what's going on, and I mean, that does make a difference, but when you're not doing anything, you're just putting money back, it's like, but when they see it, they say, okay, well, yeah, this is what this is doing.
Yeah, that's true. And another thing to keep in mind too is that, philosophically, that those that are receiving the benefit of those new assets and improved system investments are the ones that are paying for it when you sell debt in order to fund it.
Right.
If you're gonna save up and then buy it, well, people that aren't gonna have that much use out of those new assets are paying for it. So kind of philosophically, it makes sense, but again, we look at a balance of, some key performance indicators that tell us that, we're in the right spot. We don't have sufficiency, above, of revenue above debt that is not sufficient or not falling into a recognized benchmark to say that, we're out of control. We've sold too much debt and we're not able to pay for it, or rates are gonna go through the roof or further through the roof because we haven't been responsible. Last slide was, just what does inflation look like over the last number of years? And this is just the CPI, that's everything in the CPI, which is a lot different than running your utility. If you compare this to the utility number corresponding to it in 2025, that number was in the 4.5 range, not the 2.2. So this is a number anybody can look up to say, you know, what's, you know, kind of the trend of the last few years. And some of those trends going through COVID have had a lot of residual effect with cost of materials, those sorts of things. You know all about that with your experience in wine business and those sorts of things. Okay, then just a recap of the graphic that kind of shows those relationships, the balance between what you gotta pay for and what you gotta do to get there, and kind of how steep the curve is, or the line is to get you to where you need to be. Talk about some key performance metrics and kind of the overall health of your water and sewer fund. Cost recovery is basically revenue versus expenses, okay? If you're above one, you're able to pay for all your expenses. If you're below one, you're spending more than you're taking in. So good history there, and forecast a couple of years ahead. Don't like to do these too far ahead because a lot of things can change just in a couple of years. So I don't wanna put a 5-year forecast out there and say everything's great, and then we have some inflationary cycle that throws it all to the wayside. Days working capital, I've got a benchmark of 180 days in there, about a half a year. So that's about what you have historically, in some senses. And you'll notice that it runs up pretty good in 2028. If you come back to your sheet here, you can see that that's the year that you have, you know, some net income that's outpacing your expenses pretty good, so that'll drive that number up a little ways as it moves along year over year. Okay, couple others, again, sufficiency of revenue above debt. We have a very small amount of debt service today, and in the next couple of years, as you're looking at most likely one debt issue, that would bring that up a little bit, but you're still well below that threshold of 25%. Another thing that you can always look at and just keep in mind is that you know, another strategy, and again, this is all for your finance folks and your manager to sort through to say, how can we do this best? And you know, one of the things you might do is combine, you know, the first two capital items together into one project perhaps, and sell that for a little larger project, maybe get a little more economy of scale, that sort of thing. But there's a host of things that can be, scenarios that can be investigated, and it becomes yours and you can manage it from there. So that might be a possibility. There are a lot of possibilities. Then asset condition ratio. Now, that is a number that your manager is familiar with. The LGC also tracks this as one of their key performance metrics. And this says that if the remaining life of your assets for your water and sewer fund are less than 50%, they're gonna send you the nastygram and say, you gotta do some more investment.
Yeah, we've got that.
Okay, so you know all about that one. You don't get there overnight. I mean, you can see that it slowly creeps down. And if you're not reinvesting and so forth, it is gonna slide down a little bit each year and continue in that mode until you make those reinvestments. So you know what it is, you've heard about it, you don't need me to tell you any more about it, but it is forecasting your future health if it continues to slide or if you make some improvements. So the last thing is that if we just take your current rates for water and sewer and we take those projected additional revenue needs that you see on the model output, and you apply those across the board, meaning that your base rate and your volume rate go up equally, that's the forecast for your water and sewer bills in terms of dollars and cents for that typical 3,000 gallon bill. Okay, last slide here is a comparison to some of your neighbors and friends. A handout, so you don't have to try to squint too hard to see the screen. But, this is a comparison of similar utilities and in the area, that sort of thing. So people you know, towns that you know, and you'll see that you're a ways up the list, but notice the vertical dashed line. Okay, the University of North Carolina has a rates dashboard. And the rates dashboard, the university gathers rate information from 746 municipal water sewer systems across the state. Okay, and on a 3,000 gallon bill, that dashed line is the amount of a 3,000 gallon bill, the median of a 3,000 gallon bill across those 740 some utilities. So that is the middle utility in all those. It's not the average, but it's gonna be real close to it, but it's right in the middle. So this is kind of I use it as a bit of an explanation on affordability. Now, if you research affordability, it gets really complicated really fast. Okay? So we need something simple that I can understand, you can understand, citizens can understand, managers can understand, those sorts of things. That my approach to this, my assumption on this, is that if your water sewer bill for 3,000 gallons is somewhere near the middle of the road out of everybody in the whole state, then you should be able to consider yourself fairly affordable. Okay? If you're at the 90th percentile, that's a different story. But just looking at this and your neighbors and so forth in terms of how do people kind of fit into that middle of the road, how far away are you from that middle of the road number, then that can help explain things a bit. Just to put it into context. Well, yeah, it's a whole lot more than Forest City, but we're not Forest City. We're a whole different utility, they have a whole different philosophy and approach, all those sorts of things. They do things their way because it's their town. Okay? You do things your way because it's your town. And how do you compare? That's what the numbers look like, but you know more about your neighbors than I do in terms of how they run their system and how good it operates and those sorts of things. They would know more than we would know, but at the end of the day, we're just kind of looking at kind of where does affordability kind of stop and start, yeah.
Yeah, so Boiling Springs is in this twice, so it's obviously, we're at 60-30 now, and then you have us in there for fiscal year 27 at 67.54, so that's with the projected rate increases for 27.
Yes.
That's why we're in there twice.
Yes, that's exactly right, good point. And again, it compares you with your 27 rates to existing 26s, but more importantly, it's just how much is it, right? Because I'm kind of, got the little back of the napkin saying, there's about affordability at the median. And right now, you're a little bit below it, and with the projected 12% rate increase, it's a little higher, but you don't go way off the chart. That's what that's in there for. Now, in a year, I'm sure most everybody else is gonna go up a little bit, and the median value is gonna move over a little bit, those sorts of things. But if you hold all those things steady and say, if you just apply that amount to this 1 year, just to kind of see, what does that do? Does it put you all the way off the chart, or does it just move, bump you a little bit? That's what that's there for.
Yeah, I was talking to the manager about this, so I see Hickory up here as a sort of an outlier. But I know a little bit of something about Hickory and the linear feet of sewer. I mean, they've got tons of sewer. So again, more people on the system, more user fees going into the system. They're able to continually work that system, so that's why their number's lower.
Exactly, well, and again, where does the revenue come from?
From the users, it's.
And either get it by new customers or get it by more rate increases, and they have, I'm sure, a lot higher growth rate than 1%.
Yeah. And a lot of these other cities don't have a whole lot of linear feet of sewer.
Yeah, exactly.
Including us, I mean.
Exactly. Economy of scale, those sorts of things all play into it.
They also subsidize
Yeah.
for the power.
Yeah, well, sure. tell the utilities.
I was gonna drive on that point about economy of scale, cause you'll undoubtedly see anytime somebody is, the rate is lower than yours, there's either another enterprise fund that's factoring in the big pie, so to speak. Even if it's not technically supposed to, it happens. But beyond that, it's, you know, a 1 or 2% rate increase for a city of Hickory who's got 30-some thousand accounts makes a lot of difference in the fixed costs that they have for the big infrastructure that's already in place, right? And then they turn around and sell another 1 million gallons a day to Microsoft or whoever moves into town. So you're playing in different sandboxes really
Yeah.
when you're talking about a system the size of Bowling Springs. So it is tougher. I mean, there's a reason that Hickory has been as successful as they have, and some of it has been acquisition of some smaller systems. Systems even that were larger than what I would say Bowling Springs was. So that plays a factor into that kind of thing too.
I have a question. So right now, currently, our sewer system age is 54%, and you have on the draft CIP plan, you have us with 2 systems that we're gonna replace over the next 10 years. How far would that drop us below that 54% over the next 10 years?
I think the 54% was a year age.
Just age, yeah, so it's 100% depreciation of that.
Oh, he's talking about depreciation.
Pardon me?
He's mentioning depreciation, that'd be your chart.
It's that so the line is fully depreciated, I assume it's what, does it have a page number on there?
77.
77, so the line is fully depreciated, cause I guess it's over 40 years. And so the question is, once we add a depreciable line and we remove a line that is fully depreciated, do we have a rough guesstimation of what that would do to the capital asset condition ratio?
Right, because every year we're gonna receive an update. That's when it's greater than 50%, right? So when are we gonna get below that 50%? That's the big question.
So that's a good point. In the current plan, as it's laid out, and we did consider that asset condition ratio, but Dale's graph shows you how that condition ratio tracks over time. If I can get back to it, I went too far the other way.
Yeah, so
So you're tracking right now,
Yeah.
right at the 52%, or sorry, that was in 23, you were at 52%. Currently, you're gonna be 49,
Yeah.
sticking at 49, dropping down actually to 47 in the next couple of years. And that's taking into account replacing those line projects that we were talking about replacing.
But we won't be replacing sewers until 33 and 36, if we adopted the draft.
Right. So then, once you see that, and we could probably carry that number on out further, just to look at where that would move that asset condition ratio. But this is also not just sewer, this also includes water.
Right.
So if there's water projects in this window, that's at least factoring in.
Well, I have more of an explanation, but I'm not sure you want to hear it.
And I think,
Well, but it goes like this. The asset condition ratio is based on the numbers that are in the audit. Okay? Now, if you look in your audit, the auditors have a schedule for depreciation on the various types of infrastructure, right? So if they have, I believe in Boiling Springs, they have an asset life of infrastructure like pipes at 50 years. Okay? So the rate of depreciation, if you look at the plant value, those plant type stuff, water, treatment plant, wells, pump stations, that kind of thing, have a life that's less than the 50 years that's on the pipes. Okay, so when if you do a little weighted average, what you come up with is an annual rate of depreciation that increases by about 3%. Okay, so what that tells me is that you have to reinvest more than 3% to make that number go up. Okay, but at the same time, if you have a shorter than, I guess, the real life of your asset, because you're not gonna take a water main out at 50 years just because it's 50 years old. You're gonna take it out when it's failing, and your rate of failures on that particular line or that area is such that it makes sense, right? So when it's auditing numbers, that those assets actually start falling off of the equation. So you can actually, you know, have a little better ratio once your assets get even older,
I mean, once they're fully
which kind of goes
depreciated,
backwards.
once they're fully depreciated, they'll come up.
Right, and depreciation is different than useful life.
Right.
I mean, you're gonna get 90 years useful life out of your pipes, most likely, at least in my opinion. But as they're calculating some of these things, it's based on that 50 years.
Right.
So, you know, they can beat you up about that, but the reality of the situation is that the rate of failure and the maintenance schedules and those sorts of things that will dictate when you're going to make those replacements is going to be what you're gonna do, regardless of what some of those numbers look like. So I wouldn't get real worked up about that.
Yeah.
I think I would add,
But it is something that you need to pay attention to because other people are looking at it, LGC and others. And yes, we can explain the difference between useful life and depreciation and have a conversation, but at the end of the day, you're still gonna get a letter next year when they say you haven't made any progress. And I don't know how much, you know, sharp stick poking they're gonna use that you're not investing enough, you better get on it. Because, again, at the end of the day, this has to fit and it has to be affordable, otherwise you're not gonna be able to do it anyway.
I think it's worth noting too, the asset condition ratio is a new metric for the LGC to even consider. It's something that's only come about in the last 3, 4 years. And it's reflective of the fact that the LGC is in the treasurer's office, and the treasurer's office and LGC folks were all of a sudden talking to the folks at DWI in about the 2020, 21, and 22 timeframe. And what was DWI doing in that same timeframe? They're pushing this idea of everybody needs to have a better handle on what does my inventory look like? What does the condition of that inventory look like? And so as those two groups began collaborating, they're not a room full of engineers or utility owners or utility operators. They're a group of accountants. So what are they gonna do? They're gonna look at that audit, and that's where that is derived from. And I think our perspective would be, we wanna keep an eye on that, cause it is the item that you get a letter about if you're not up to snuff. But we certainly put more value in a more comprehensive and holistic approach that has some technical basis for making those decisions about how you invest. And so I'd say, just kind of a real quick case in point, about 3 years ago, we had a client who had some issues in their general fund and who got the notice from the LGC that the LGC was getting in the car and coming from Raleigh with 2 people to sit down and go through the budget and go through the audit and understand the overall situation. And so that was derived because of a public safety project issue and some other stuff in the general fund, but because they were coming, they were gonna ask about everything. And so this client calls me up and they say, we need you here, we're gonna have this audit or this visit with LGC. And I mean, the people with LGC that came were super professional and they were courteous, they weren't in the gotcha mode necessarily, but they were asking some hard questions about the general fund. And then I can tell you that when we got to the portion of the interview where they started asking about the capital improvements plan and the utility fund itself, not general fund, but the utility fund, when the town manager said, right here's the CIP that we prepare every year and we update and McGill handles it, and here's the plan on how we're gonna invest and how we're gonna make this cash flow. They took a look at it and said, yep, looks good, let's move on. So I think it's an acknowledgement too in their part that, they recognize when somebody goes to the effort to try to plan. And that's the encouraging part for Bowling Springs and anybody else who's going through this.
Anything else?
Appreciate the information y'all shared with us, and I really like the charts, those last 2 pages, I think are invaluable in the projections and what we need to do. And we'll have to vote on this and come up with what we're really gonna do. But anyway, I mean, this is solid information, we appreciate your work.
last thing I'll say, logistically speaking, that you will need, is once this board approves the meeting minutes from tonight, we'll need to get a copy of that to, the manager obviously gets an email, but we'll need to get a copy of that to the folks at DWI. We'll see that in just kind of a closeout checklist to understand that you all have heard this information. It by no means ties your hands or binds you to follow this plan to the T. It's just an acknowledgement that the work is done, you've received the
We have the
full
plan.
report, and you have the plan, you heard it.
And you all have a resolution there, it's resolution 260310.05, and that acknowledges receipt of this, and so that's also a step, so that just says that I can file the needed paperwork and sign off on the paperwork with UWI to close out our grant. And then once we get those minutes, we're able to file that with the DEQ.
Actually, I had forgotten that we had that resolution in your hands, but if you've got that resolution, the minutes are inconsequential.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Good deal. So I guess we need a motion to approve the resolution.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen, very, very good report, very.
Oh, good, the bound books.
We have a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion to approve the resolution, I'm not gonna give the number because I don't see it.
I'll second.
Motion second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay, motion carried. All right. Move to the town manager, 3 minutes.
Well, I'm making a face.
You make space on that time,
Well,
3 minutes is it.
Because you all know that I don't like getting out what I consider early. So a couple things on my manager's report. So we are working with a group called Mural Mosaic. And we have got small mural tiles. Tracy is either holding one up or preparing to, that can be painted and then put onto the, wall adjacent to the town's courtyard. And so Tracy has got those here. They come in little kits and they come with cute little easels. And then all of these will be arranged on that wall. And so we've looked at that. There's 150, 148 tiles to paint. And so Tracy's gonna put all that information out. They're gonna be due on April the 15th. And so she's gonna push all of that information. And we're gonna track who gets those because we don't want any holes in our mural. That's gonna be an issue. I am not artsy. I will not be doing one.
You really don't have the arts to do, you just.
Oh,
paint by
let's
numbers,
not.
no.
It is not a paint by numbers.
Tracy says Tracy can help you create a paint by number pattern using any picture you provide.
Paint by- says that
Well,
right.
it says Tracy can help you. I don't know what, that's what my note says. I don't know what that means.
This is a free hand painting. They want it within the theme of nature, but if you have a photo, I have an app that can take that photo and make it into a paint by number.
They assign you the colors. That,
We just pick the colors.
the paint comes with colors. There's colors in the box. Yes, the paint comes with colors. The last time I did a paint by number, my wife bought it for me for Christmas, and I thought we were gonna get divorced because I was doing it by myself and I was being attacked for my conduct. So that's not my speed. I'm not able to do that. I don't think it's gonna shock anybody that I'm not artsy, but that's just not my bailiwick. But Tracy's got that, all tiles we use in the final product, and it is a 12 by 24. Take a couple of kits to hand out, Tracy says, but write who you give them to, because we're gonna be writing who takes them. And, 'cause we can't have any holes in the mural.
Do we have some picture of rendering of how it'll look when it all gets put together?
Yes.
Free.
On the website, and I think they come on the tiles.
It's actually in each There is a picture of what it could potentially look like, keeping in mind that each tile is different.
It's a mosaic. And they do these all over the world, and there is a group of people who are based in Canada who are, I don't wanna say fanatical, but one dial under that, about these. So they're actually coming for the assembly and ribbon cutting, and they travel all around the world. You put them all together with the color palette, and it creates a tree that's the America tree. That's what they chose this year for us. I don't know why, what, an eagle, don't ask me. But they're thrilled to death, and they're all coming in June, I think. And they went to Scotland last year, and they take a group, and they
So,
tour.
they want it finished when they get here?
Yes.
We have to have the tiles submitted to them, and it's done online by email by April 15th, so we just have a little more than a month to get 148 tiles painted. I know.
We can do it.
We can do it. I said maybe we could use it like 4th of July, unveiling your 4th of July or something.
I think so they are coming to town to unveil it, and it's in June. Tracy, when did Tracy say they were coming? Do you remember?
No.
Her name is Tracy too, so we got two Tracys running around now. and it's got-
You can have two Tracy's.
It's got me.
Why not?
Well, there's Canadian Tracy and our Tracy, but the Canadian Tracy said that they're coming in June, 90% sure. But these people are, I told you, fanatical. I don't wanna say fanatical, whatever's one rung under fanatical, I don't know
And
what.
essentially, we have a,
They are exceptionally passionate about this specific title.
all of a sudden, how big will it be?
12 by 24.
12 feet by 24 feet.
Yes, sir.
It'll be mine where?
On the wall adjacent to the courtyard where those olive trees are. Yeah, not where the current one is, but across from the current mural. On the wall on the side of Kathy Creswell's, beauty parlor. Top of the town, that big wall there.
I had another thought.
I'm ready.
It might be neat for historic purposes, if we could ask them to take a marker or something. Can you see the backside of that one?
Yep.
Is it clear?
Somewhat.
They're somewhat clear, maybe we could ask them to write their name and dates, cause somebody in the future might wanna know who painted this.
Yeah.
What happens is when you submit it by email, you're submitting a picture of your tile, send it in by email, you provide them with your name. And so when you go online and you look at the picture online, you can see who painted what tile.
I mean, you just turn it over.
Yeah, this,
But
that,
we're not, they keep their own tiles unless you want us to collect them back.
What now? We're gonna put it up, we're gonna take it back now?
No, the company, Euro Mosaic, creates an actual tile
From that prototype.
from this.
So what we do is go on the wall.
so this is an example, and then they're gonna make us an actual tile out of it that can,
That
be-
matches the
yeah,
tile.
cause this can't go on the wall.
Oh.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah, this can't go on the wall. So we'll send them that picture and they will make it into a tile and then that's how they will assemble it to make it look like the tree.
So they're gonna assume that we're not.
Correct. This also is not part of my 3 minutes.
I'll decide who's. And you can't go back either.
That's true. Oh,
Something I'm very interested in, I think one that I had looked at was different than this one.
yes, it was.
One that I had presented earlier, because it was where it was paint, everybody painted the tiles, and we assembled the tiles,
Mhm.
and this was different,
It is. Yes.
okay?
Questions on the mural mosaic? Okay, the Vietnam veterans, we don't know any of those, Traveling Wall is interested in coming in 2027 here to our town park. Is that something anyone has ever taken part in or heard of?
I have, it's gonna be a Spindale.
Yeah, we are sending a delegate, Tracy, to Spindale, when they come there. So Tracy's looked into us having it here at our park. Is that something of interest?
Yes,
We will do that. Easy enough.
I speak for myself, yes.
How large is
In fact,
this?
I plan to go to Spindale, see there.
The wall is 144 feet in total. It's 3/5 the size of the wall in DC.
But
Yeah, I was
all the
thinking-
names are there, they're in the same places, everything.
I was thinking about the courtyard, but that's too big. You'd have to be a park, yeah.
It's a very cool event.
It is, I've seen it.
Quick mural update. We have got a proclamation here, and it says a resolution honoring National Vietnam War Veterans Day, 2026, America 250, and the visit of the wall that heals. And so, we have gotten this here, and it's got several whereases. I'm not gonna read them all now, because I've only got 3 minutes. But, we were going to suggest that potentially we could proclaim this tonight, Mr. Mayor, and that we can then post this on our website as part of the town's commitment to America 250. With these proclamations, they don't typically require any kind of vote, or it's more of a consensus item, if that sounds like something the board feels appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay. And it talks about, it talks about March 29, 1979 being the last day of the National Vietnam War Veterans Day. It talks about America's 250th anniversary and those kind of things. And we can post this on our website as well. So we'll get that to you, Mr. Mayor, for you to sign off on that. Tractor Supply is coming along. We are working with them now. We've gotten them almost through the permitting process. We are over the fire hydrant issue. And we are sailing for clear skies. I do want you to put on your calendar, if it's not on there yet, for May the 9th. That is the Cars on College Car Show. Registration will open tomorrow afternoon. We're gonna do that a little bit differently this year. So they're gonna have, there will be a judging component to that. And then we've got a prize, plaque for Best in Show.
Who's gonna give out one award?
I think that there's 3. I said no.
Whether she's one.
But I think that there's 3. I said no. But everybody
If
thought,
you're gonna give awards in the
they
first
thought
show,
I
you
was
have to
being
do it like
funny.
the other people
I
do
said
their
no
first shows.
awards.
Okay.
But everybody said I was being fuddy-duddy, so fine.
You are.
Well, you've met me, there's 3.
Do we have a breaking ground date for Tractor Supply?
No. They are insistent that they will be open and operational Q1 of next year. Color me skeptical, but that's what they say. So we'll see. Is there any, so we've talked a couple of times about changing your election year from odd years to even years, and there seems to be some support for that as a group. I was wrong, mark it down. Happens all the time. That happens all the time. I don't even keep
That's
score.
2 times a minute.
All the time. I've been wrong 17 times today, but we don't track that number. But I was wrong. I thought that you all could do that by ordinance, but you cannot. You can control the length of your term by ordinance. And I thought you could control the year in which you are elected. So the option before you now, if you chose to do it, is that you could pursue, we could pursue a local bill in the General Assembly to just change the town of Boiling Springs election year from odd year to even year. The county, the option we had discussed initially, where there was some grassroots support at some level for a county-wide local bill that would move us all as a monolith to that, is not going to pick up any traction because it required unanimity, and they do not have that. They don't have universal support for that move. So if you all want us to do that, that's perfectly fine. We can work with Representative Scott and Senator Alexander to do that, if that's what the board wants to do. But completely up to you all. I did want to give you that update though. So y'all just let me know on that.
That'd be time sensitive, would it not?
It would be, yes, sir. So if we want to get it in the short session, we would need to know by April the 1st, because they're gonna convene, right in the middle of April. because they have several pressing needs to discuss. They didn't disclose what those needs were, but I think that they're of the budget or mini budget, however they wanna phrase that. So, there was also the potential tonight for a closed session to discuss 2 contracts. I didn't put that on the agenda. They really did not emerge until this weekend after you had your agenda. We can wait and discuss them later unless you all feel like, and I feel certain that we could be wrapped up by 8:15, which I know is another 45 minutes, but I'm accounting for time for a 15 or a 5-minute break, and then all of you make your comments. So if that's something the board's interested in, I hate to put it before you in this way, I know it's a weird way to do it. But there is potential, we could entertain that if that's something you all are interested in, or we can wait until next month. There is no meeting in April.
So it's not time sensitive.
They are not time sensitive, to the degree that you all need to discuss them as a board. That would violate the open meetings law if I didn't talk to you about it individually. But I can talk to you about it individually and get the information that I need. If that's how we wanna proceed, that's perfectly fine with me. I know, it's a weird one. Weird
You
shit
don't
one.
usually ask us this.
I do not. We typically just have it on the agenda as an item. But if it may not even take the whole time, so I know it's a weird one, but it's completely up to you all. It's a situation that developed over the weekend.
I think in lieu of not having a meeting in April, it would be a good closed session.
Is that,
Over here, I mean, has anybody got?
And we actually are ahead of time.
I'm actually okay with it, get it out of the way.
I guess, well, when we finish.
do you wanna do your council member comments and then we can walk through, I'm writing down now what the motion would need to be, so I can walk us through, and Mr. Shreppy, I'll have to lean on you. I would just assume it'd be a motion to suspend the rules and amend the agenda to add a closed session item.
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine,
Okay, we do that, we'll finish it.
Yeah. We can do that for sure. And I'm done. That was it for me. I think my time really was 3 cents.
All right, then we'll start with Councilman Litton.
I don't have anything, thank
You know, I always have something about the Greenway. We did meet this past week. A lot of it was about budget items. I won't talk about that. I won't bore you with that, but the N2D Horse Club, I think most of the community knows about this. They're having 2 events in 2026. One will be on May the 14th through the 16th, and the other one is September the 11th through the 12th. And the people that are running this now, they're really trying to reach out to the State Patrol, to the Sheriff's Department, and I'm hoping that they reach out to Chief DeOria about helping down there. They really want to be respectful of the neighborhood, just saying. And they've got 2 big parking lots that they can park in now, that the owners will get to pick up parking fees. Anyway, the last thing is, you know, everybody loves the Easter Bunny coming to the Greenway. So that's March the 29th from 2 p.m. until all the candy is gone. And they need volunteers around 1 p.m., which is about an hour before the event. And that's it. That's all I have.
Just to comment on that briefly, members of the Boiling Springs Police Department have met with representatives from N2D already.
Okay.
So those conversations are ongoing.
But they are seeming like they really want
Yes,
to
sir.
do what's right by the community.
Yes, and that it seems to have taken on a new life and new
Since
leadership.
they've changed ownership groups, or the ones that are running the show, yes.
Councilman Ellis,
I do not have anything.
David, Councilman Davis.
And that's one thing, the McGill group for presenting all this useful information. This will help guide us on the capital improvement plan. It goes a long way. So hats off to you guys. Thank you.
Anything?
Helps me?
That's it.
All right. I wanted to highlight, the police department and Chief DeOria. I mean, they did a really great job on the motor vehicle death and handling that situation and that whole process of things. So, I appreciate the professionalism and how well that was handled. And, also on just the update, we got this update of all the movement and all the new hires and what's happening with the police department. And I hear nothing but great stuff, so I just wanted to highlight that tonight and to just say great job and job well done. Thank you to Mike and to Todd. I mean, we talked about water and sewer tonight, and that's what you guys work every day, day in, day out, fixing stuff and repairing stuff, and keeping it all in. So thank you for the job well done. And to McGill, thank you. I don't know who mentioned that it's a business, the enterprise fund is a business. And it's not for profit, it's for a quality of life issue for us. And we take greatly that to heart and say, you know, we try to provide the best service to the citizens here. So I really was happy to hear that part of the presentation. And, I mean, we want to have good water. We've got a neighbor that's got some bad water issues. And we don't want to be in that, but we want to continue working toward that. So thank you for that hard work, guys. Appreciate it. That's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
First thing I'd like to say is, my wife, my sinuses are bothering me tonight, so I'm not maybe quite as on target as I need to be, but, I'd just like to echo that, I continue to hear nothing but good things about our police department. And it's good to hear because that's not always been the case. And, the crowd that I ate breakfast with, they're not a very, well, you've met most of them, so I wouldn't do that. But I hear nothing but good things, and not just there, I do other places too, but, so I wanna commend you for what you brought to our police department. And, that's a tribute to you and the officers that you hired. I'd like to thank McGill again for the very informative report. Since I've been a council member, it's very thorough and well done, and, good information there. The problem for us is like, I think maybe Councilman Thomas mentioned this, it's hard to sell because people don't actually see what's going on. So I think it's all up to all of us to make sure that everybody understands, that it is a quality of life issue. We said people don't care about sewer, you let them flush your commode, you come back up and talk to you. Then they'll get on the phone and start calling. But I want to commend the board for being forward thinking, not only on this, but all the other things. I think we're moving forward. Every day here, somebody asks questions or comments about all the work that's going on uptown. And so I think in the next couple of months, 3 months or so, we're going to be seeing a lot of rewards from that hard work and all the inconveniences that people endure. Although I personally have not heard anybody complain about the traffic or the holds up or anything. So I think that's I think our citizens really understand what's going on there, and they know when we get done, it's gonna be better for them. And I think some of that goes back to the council and the trust they have in us, and I think even the strategic plan, that shows that people do have confidence in us, in the council. I know lots of places where that's not the case. I'm trying to talk as long as Zach did. Somebody keep the time.
I think you've been able, Mr. Mayor.
All right, then I'll stop, and I'd also like to commend all the staff. I don't think we can just pick out one or two. I think it's a joint venture there, and I think all of you work together well, and I think, I think we're very fortunate to have the staff that we do. Since Billy didn't say that, Councilman Evans did say that, I'll get that in there tonight. With that, I'm finished, and I'd also like to add that I'm very much in favor of the project, the mosaic thing. I think it'd be good for us, and I know lots of artsy people. So
Want to come see me.
Why are you gonna say something?
I think we have a motion to,
I know.
Sorry.
I'll finish my comments at that time, Will.
Yeah.
You wanna read our motion you want somebody to make, or?
Yes, so we need to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.115, and that is to establish or instruct a public body, staff in negotiating agents concerning the position taken
taken by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating the price of material or other terms of contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property or purchase, option, release, or exchange, or the amount of compensation or material terms of an employment contract or proposed employment contract. So we're going into it. See, I can talk fast when I do some commercial. And so, is there a motion to go into closed session for that reason?
I make that motion.
Second. Second motion,
Second.
all in favor,
Aye.
all opposed? So we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll meet back in the conference room.
Zach, you do commercials at the end? I don't, but I used to have to read those testing things to the kids at school, and that's how I would read them. Yeah. Because they're all the same. Fred, we're glad you came tonight. We missed you, Ray.
Yes, sir. Keep up the good work.
Technical labor.